Oh, what did I do to Rick? Does anyone have any ideas where Rick is? Not a soul, eh? Wee bit, didn't we? We got into it a bit in Walking Dead World Beyond. Talked about a bit what happened after he arrived. There should be a show to just of him, because we've missed him, haven't we? I just tend to say up, up, up. Yeah. That's my general answer about where Rick is. But I thought, just before I came, well, I tell everyone he's dead. How will that go down?
But you're supposed to be doing spin-off movies now with him.
Yeah.
Now. So if he is dead, that's going to be quite a...
That's going to be an interesting film. With
the one-woman show, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, just me. Yeah, those movies, we've been waiting for them for a while, so I'm hoping they're still happening. Yeah.
Your character, Jade / Anne, obviously isn't in the comics. Mm-hmm. How much of that were you able to create of your own? How much of that was on the page for you?
You know, she was such an intriguing character when I came in, like the way she speaks and the way she acts and the way she dresses, all of that. There was a lot to be gleaned from how she's living her life now, you know, and how she's very careful with resources and very bold and seems to like to manipulate and likes to get a good read on people, sometimes in a trickstery kind of way. Puts people on the back foot with the way she speaks and everything. So I just kind of decided some things myself. Scott Gimple's famously secretive about, you know, backstory and stuff. But I knew she was a teacher before I was allowed to talk about that. So there was that.
Because you're saying that's very see. There is so many scenes in that show where you're going, don't listen to her. She's not telling the truth.
She's a liar. My nose starts growing, yeah.
Was there any, because you came in, the show was at that point the biggest show of all time. Was there any nervousness or apprehension?
Oh yeah, I was shitting myself. Totally.
And again, another part is things like this. You're going to be answering Walking Dead questions for the rest of your life, and that's such a passionate fan base you have. Yeah. What's been your experience like with them?
It's been really cool. It's been really special, not just getting to know the cast and the crew who are so talented and welcoming, but the fan base, you know, all of you guys, like, it's really pleasant to be able to make people happy just by saying hello or taking a picture with someone, you know. And like you say, the fans are really passionate about the show, and so am I, so we've always got that in common. I've always got respect for them because they like a show that I really like. I felt very lucky to be on a show that I really like, you know.
One of your most famous scenes in the show, of course, is the duel you had with Hook. And you're going through, obviously, stunt coordination, everything like that is supposed to be so well managed. And then not only that, you have to do it with a co-star who you are told is 5 months pregnant. So what was that scene like to shoot? Like, what was that pressure like? Were you constantly at the back of your mind, oh, please don't hit her? It was
scary, but I was more scared of Annette than I was of her. She gets right into it. We had a fantastic stunt team, and we had good rehearsal time. I'd never worked with those big poles before, so it was kind of challenging in that regard. And she had some protection on, obviously, around her belly. But yeah, it was pretty hairy to fear when someone's pregnant. That's a lot of responsibility. But we just had a really good time, and she's really gung-ho, so it was a good one. And we did have 2 stunt women who were playing us in the wide shots. So if we made it look like crap, they would tidy it up for us, really.
We're talking about the fans. Obviously, Hook was one of a fan favorite character. Have you had any interaction with fans, or like, you know, kind of people a bit mad at you for that?
The pandemic's been really handy with the masks because I could hide, and you know, I shaved my head during the early part of the pandemic. So just like, I'm so hidden now. It's great. And then I moved here, so nobody gives a crap. Whoever you are here, it's fantastic.
You said about shaving your head, obviously, mask. Something I seen you in recently was Hap and Leonard that you done with. And you look like it's essentially China from the wrestling. When he was seeing this, you are shredded beef in that show. How was the preparation for that? Because you're looking at it, it's like, that isn't the same person.
Yeah, no, it's really fun to get to do roles that are so different from the last one, and you know, from yourself. And those books, I don't know, has anyone seen Hap and Leonard? Yeah. The book's written by Jo R. Lansdale, fantastic books, and she's described as having legs as thick as trees, you know. And so in the audition process, they wanted to see any proof that I could put on that kind of weight. So I'd played more muscly people before, so I'd showed them some images, and then I had 7 weeks just to prepare, but like no budget for it. So I just ate all the food and lifted all the things and put them down and lifted them again.
That's the part I'm missing out on. I'm just eating all the food.
Yeah,
That's why I'm not.
You've
Yeah,
got to lift
I've got
to lift the things.
I've got my training plan now.
Yeah, and I'm actually working out with a trainer here now, a guy called Paul Byrne, who's wonderful, and sort of preparing to get into some action stuff again. So it's just fun, oddly. It's fun.
This would be for Vikings Valhalla, is that right?
Well, she just swans around. I'm Queen Alfie. She just swans around and, you know, gets up to mischief. But no, it's something else I'm writing, actually. It's an old historical story that involves a lot of action. So I'm getting ripped to get ready to pitch that and play a Celtic queen who's quite murderous.
So are you going to be directing as well?
Yeah.
So you're writing, directing, and getting in shape
Yeah,
for
I'm
this.
just a complete
just addicted to
megalomaniac.
shred. We've got mics up here and up here, and if anyone up on the balcony wants to throw up their hand if they want to ask a question, that's no problem either. Just to go back to Happen Leonard as well, because you worked with two of my favourite actors actually of all time, in Michael K. Williams and Brian Dennehy.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the experience with working with them?
It was such a gorgeous cast, and everyone was so wonderful. We really missed Michael, who was, you know, so sadly taken from us last year. But yeah, coming in with that kind of talent, I was like, I hope I hold my own, you know. And she's another character who's quite quiet, like vicious, but quite quiet, didn't say a lot. So I got to be quite intimidating, and Jimmy Simpson as well played opposite me. He was great. We had a good time. We were in Louisiana, and we had a good time. We went out a lot, and it was pretty fun. It was a good time. Yeah.
I feel there's a lot of stories there that aren't quite Comic Con safe, shall we say, there that you're hinting at. Someone else you also got to work with, another idol, John Landis, on Broken Hair, which again has this incredible cast. You've got Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and all involved in that. What was that? Andy Serkis, sorry, not Nick Frost.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, working with, like, you know, a legendary director like John Landis?
It was crazy because he's such a film encyclopedia, and he really knows his stuff. But he's a grumpy bastard. He's really shitty. Sorry, I see kids. He was a bit of a tyrant, John Landis.
Okay, so no need to worry about swearing. We had the twins from Breaking Bad on just before you, and I don't think there's an F-bomb left in the country.
Yeah, it's a shame when someone is so talented but isn't kind and generous. When you're dealing with a lot of extras on a history piece like that, people are working really hard in the cold and giving it their all, and they're not being paid very much. And he was just kind of beastly to people. So sorry to disappoint. I've loved his movies too, but
I'm kind of hoping you don't ruin the next person for me as well. The thing you did Bob, sort of independent.
Oh
with
yeah, Brian Cox.
Please don't ruin Brian Cox for me.
Brian Cox is an absolute dream. I love him so much. He's great.
What was that experience? Because if anyone hasn't seen it, it's a hysterical comedy show where Brian Cox, we've only seen him from Succession. It's a completely different part. It's like a farcical thing. What's like getting into that part of side of things like?
Yeah, so Bob Servant Independent's a guy who owns a burger van in the north of Scotland, well, not North Scotland, in Dundee, Broughty Ferry by Dundee, very small place. And he's got his sort of right-hand man who's the sauce manager, whatever he's called, like the head of sauces in the burger van. And that's Johnny Watson, and it's very comedic, and Brian's playing kind of an egotist, fantasist who believes himself to be a bigger deal than he is, and he's running for local office. And then my husband in the show, played by Rufus Jones, he's an English politician, and he wants to come and be the man there. And I'm his wife and campaign manager, and kind of puppeteering him, like, you know. So I'm kind of Brian Cox's nemesis in it, and I think I was probably overacting the hell out of the whole thing because it was with a lot of comedians. And Brian would just say, "You're going to milk this scene for everything, aren't you?" And I'd go, "Yeah." And he'd go, "Me too. It takes one to know one." He was really kind. It was fun. Yeah. I think we have a question down here. Yeah. What's it like working with Andrew Lincoln? He is delightful. Such a pro, you know, so into it and really cares about every aspect of the show. He never watches the show, so he doesn't know. Yeah, he's never watched an episode. He just doesn't want to. I think he doesn't want to break the fourth wall for himself, you know. But he never leaves set. He's always there. He never goes to his trailer or anything, and just immensely supportive. And quite nerve-wracking coming in to work with him, you know. I, by this point, binged a lot of the show, so I was like zombified myself. And I think it was a couple of days in, and he turned to me and he said, "You're real weird. I like you." And I thought, oh, yeah. But just a delight, you know, total family man, super warm, never breaks his accent, you know. So he's telling me about how he's from Bath and stuff, but in this American accent. I'm like, this is really weird. Yeah, it's cool. He's great.
Question up there?
Yeah.
Hiya.
Hey. I was actually out with my friend there to ask a question if he wanted. He doesn't want to come in, but it's actually a question I wanted to ask as well. Should we be, because it is coming to the end of season 11 of The Walking Dead and it's ending very soon, should we be suspecting surprises in the final, like from?
Always, yeah. Always surprises should be expected. I don't know what surprises. I'm still very much in touch with the cast and crew, so I know a couple of little tidbits that are going on, but I wouldn't want to ruin anything for anyone.
I know, yeah.
But I think there'll be some surprises, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Would you be open to directing any? Because we had with Michael Cudlitz
Yeah.
on earlier, and he's done a few episodes as well, and it seems to be
Yeah.
something they encourage cast members to do. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I did a bit of job shadowing on Walking Dead World Beyond and shadowed some of the directors. We actually had all female directors on that series, season 2. But it's a different animal. I like directing film. I like having the whole process of leading up to it and, you know, very much being one vision that everyone's serving and kind of problem solving and all of that. But when you're doing TV, you're more serving a thing that's been there for a long time. And so I think it's a certain skill. You're also dealing with a lot more money in TV. And to be honest, I think I'm not quite ready to handle that responsibility without putting my own seal on it. So I think it might be one of the spin-offs that I would be interested in doing when I'm a little bit further down the line. I've only made one feature and 2 shorts so far, so I want to make my next feature and just get my own, you know what I mean? So I can come in with my own stuff.
When you're writing, there's something that I heard an interview you were discussing. You were writing something about a stand-up who gets pregnant with a one-night stand, and pouring yourself into that, and then you see Obvious Child comes out, which is a very similar story.
Yeah.
How frustrating is that when you put something in your heart and soul into something, and all of a sudden, it's similar, something similar has been done?
Well, it's all like we're all telling the same stories over and over, aren't we? So I just try and avoid things that are on the same theme as what you're working on, so that you don't steal stuff by mistake, you know. But it was really weird watching that film for me because it was literally like I had a joke where she's stuck in a suitcase of her own, and in Obvious Child there's a scene where she comes out of a box in the middle of her own room, and it was just like. It was like somebody had been reading my mind. It
was like the Dante's Peak volcano of...
Yeah.
Actually, you done stand-up yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, I did stand-up to prepare for that role, yeah.
How did that go?
It was great, because I could bomb and it didn't matter, as long as I was doing it, as long as I was researching.
It's not my real job, I can do what I want.
Yeah, so I have great respect for comedians and would never, want to be known as one because it's not my skill. But it was so fun going up in front of crowds and just kind of scaring yourself and doing it different ways each time and learning the pieces different ways each time and sometimes not knowing what I was going to say and just doing it on stage. I'd like to do more of that, like maybe one-woman-y kind of stuff and tell stories and that, yeah.
And that's something Phoebe Waller-Bridge has done Fleabag, obviously done the one-woman show on that.
Yeah.
And that seems to be something that there is a huge appetite for now.
Yeah.
So what kind of would you, because going through your career, it's so eclectic, and especially the film that you did direct was this terrifying, complex horror film. So I'm just kind of curious as to what your one-woman show would look like.
It would be a very mixed bag. Maybe I'll just call it a mixed bag, referring to myself. That would be good.
It's just, because I was watching, I don't know if anyone's seen Darling, it's this, essentially this a feral woman. There's some of the most disturbing graphic imagery, but again, a great story going the whole way through it. And then you meet and you're just kind of this very proper, I'd never, watching that film going, this is not the same person.
That's good. Yeah, I wouldn't like to be in the real world covered in mud and dirt and naked and hair down to my bum.
It sounds like my Saturday mornings. Walking Dead, obviously you got the World Beyond as well with that as well. How much of that are you able to kind of push your own story in that, because it's not tied to the comics, and do you get like because you're obviously someone who's very creative and likes to make their own worlds.
Yeah.
What part of that is that still kind of creatively exciting for
Yeah.
you?
Well, it was cool. Like, for instance, when I came in for the fittings, I said, can I do my hair this way? And asked if I could shave it, cut it real short and shave it all around the side. I wanted to kind of do a Joan of Arc thing. Because if Jadis is now serving the CRM, it's like she's serving this bigger thing that she believes to be great and important and useful. And I wanted her to see herself as a soldier on the right side, So that's why I did that hair. And they said, yeah, let's do it. But that was something else. Like, Walking Dead is not the kind of place you walk into and go, I have an idea. It's like, yeah, we know. We've got all the ideas and we've got it planned to, perfection. Like, you couldn't change one line on Walking Dead, really. Except the episode where Jadis takes Rick away, I did have them cut some of the dialogue because I felt like I was yelling up to that helicopter pilot, like telling him my whole life, whilst I was trying to save someone. And I was like, it's a bit, but we had Matt Negretti, who's the showrunner of Walking Dead World Beyond, was the writer of that episode, and he was on set. And then Greg Nicotero was directing, and he has a lot of sway, obviously. And Andy was agreeing with me as well, so we did cut some lines. Whereas in Walking Dead World Beyond, I had quite a few suggestions for things to be trimmed and things to match up in a different way, and they were I'd have these meetings with Scott Gimple and Matt Negretti together on the phone, and we'd work a lot of it out that way, because they wrote that pretty quick, and having played her for so long now, they were interested in my take, so that was nice.
Because you're very active on social media, so when you get something with the script, like with something like Walking Dead, like Rick, who's been this stalwart character on the biggest show of all time, and you were directly involved with his leaving the show.
Yeah.
What was your Twitter like then for the next few days after that?
I was really scared of it. I was really scared that I would see horrible things being said. And in fairness, the fans were very kind, and mostly were saying, thank you for saving our Rick, So I was like, phew. Of course, if you dig deeper, anywhere you go, you have people saying horrific things, But mostly it worked. I was very, very relieved.
Especially because you have that character does a lot of treacherous things as well.
She's a twisty one.
I was just thinking about Malcolm McDowell when he was in the Star Trek movie and he kills Kirk. He was getting hate mail sent to his house for killing it. Now, how they knew to send it to Malcolm McDowell and not the character's name, that's a different story. So none of that happened to you then?
No, so far so good. Had a couple of things arrive at my house, but nothing dark. No, just quite sweet stuff.
A bit ambiguous there. So I don't dig any
just
deeper.
like nice stuff from fans, and I've been a bit like, it's where I live. It's really weird, but I moved here, so I escaped.
Nobody will bother you in Ireland.
No, you're all fine, right?
The next thing you have coming up is Vikings, obviously.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that? What can we expect from you? Another Pollyanna transformation?
Yeah, I'm blonde. I've got this long blonde wig, which actually the hair department on Walking Dead, those guys, the wig makers for Walking Dead, made that wig, because I had to get it fitted in the States and come over here for the show. So it was flown before I got there. She's the Queen of Denmark. She's King Canute's wife, and she's got a lot of plans. She's got a lot of sway and power, and she's also being kind of pushed out. So she's fighting for what's hers. Gorgeous costumes, just massive big dresses, and extraordinary crowns and jewelry and everything. So it's kind of fun to be very feminine. Great cast, great crew. Just, you can imagine like going into the world of Vikings, like watching ships being built and armor being sewn and metal, swords being made. It's just like cool as. And it's really cool to be shooting here, and that this everywhere you go in town, you see like, oh, that's a Vikings extra. That's all the beards everywhere.
Yeah, I think everyone with a ponytail and a beard has been in Vikings or Game of Thrones in here at some point. It's everyone's Facebook profile picture.
Yeah.
But you started off very early in this, and I think you were 7 or 8 years old. You performed in front of the Queen.
Yeah, when I was 9, my school had its centenary, and the Queen came.
As she does.
As she does, and in her gloves, and I played Henry VIII in my mum's curtains, bloomers, and I had a little blonde bob, and I met the Queen, and I shook her hand, and it was kind of exciting, actually.
Did you
now
get
I'd be like...
Oh, just the Queen, yeah,
Wouldn't
she
that
can
be
wait. You're no Andrew Lincoln. You got a question there?
Hi. My mom wanted me to ask you, was it difficult for you to memorize your script without the pronouns in The Walking Dead? Like without using the pronouns?
That's a good question. Yeah, you know, I found it immensely natural the way she spoke from the audition process on. It just made sense because it felt to me like she was kind of screwing with him, you know, and she was saving time, like she saves, you know, resources in every way, including words. So no, it always made sense. It always made sense to me. That's maybe just me.
Thank you.
Thanks. We had somebody, was it you who wanted to ask a question? Was it you? There you go. Do you want a microphone?
Okay.
You got it?
Who did you like to work with best on the set of The Walking Dead?
Good question. I think working with Andy was honestly my favorite because he's so one-on-one with you. You know, he's really with you and focused, and you just feel like it's real, and he's so invested, and things would change with each take, with each go-round, you know? So it just felt like the real world. It was really cool.
Do you watch The Walking Dead?
You read the comics? Yeah.
That's just a terrifying image of the...
Yeah, in a few years, you've got 11 years of TV. How did it feel when I was on a show so big? Well, at first I was a bit scared, you know, because I knew how people were so crazy about it, and I didn't really know anything about the world, so I felt a bit like an imposter at first, you know. And then I was just catching up, and I loved it so much that I thought, oh, okay, good, I belong here, because I know, you know, why people love it. It meant the food was very good. And it meant that you're working with some really great people. And then I think the other thing about the show being so big is just that, like, the amount of people who've seen it and who know it and who know you is quite amazing. And being in the States, like, you'd go into a shop. I love to go bargain shopping. You know, I'm Scottish, so I love to go into like a TK Maxx kind of thing. And I'd be in there, and people would be like, what are you doing in here? Why are you here? I'm like, what, do you think I'm a millionaire because I'm on a big TV show? Like, no. So it's kind of funny, but people will just hug you, especially in Atlanta. People just, come here, family, you know, and just give you a big squeeze. And it's like, for somebody like me, I love people, so it's fantastic. I think if you're really shy, like Melissa, who plays Carol, is really shy. She's not good with a lot of folks. So for her, it's kind of a nightmare. I think she loves that people love her work and that love the show. But yeah, I'm all every day I'm up for that. I'm up for like, hey, you know, it's cool. Go on then. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he's great fun. He's really naughty. And like he's always, when we're doing conventions and that, he's always checking in like, how's it going? You know, he wants to meet the boyfriend or whatever. And then, but when we were doing that scene in the car where I had to smash him across the face with a gun, I smashed him across the face with a gun. He's so big and I'm so big and we're in this tiny car with this huge gun and there's no space. And I went for it and he just went, oh. And that was real pain. And I was like, part of me was like, well then just pass out like you're supposed to. And it's gonna look really good. I'm gonna let them get a close up of your big red nose. But then the rest of me was like, oh God, I've just hurt him, it's terrible. He was very kind. He said Andy had done the same thing. And then when we did the scene where I had to tie him up and everything, he didn't like that. They don't like being tied up, the dudes, you know?
Yeah.
Or
like smashed in the face with guns.
Well, that he was better about than the tying up. He's like, when is this going to be done? You know? And Seth Killian was the same when I had to tie him up, the priest. He didn't like it either. I think it really freaks them out being restrained. I want to do more of that.
This is why they're not letting you direct the show.
That's
No,
right.
it's just like, I'm going to tie you up, I'm going to smack you up. That would be a very different spin-off to the
It would, wouldn't it?
Walking
Yeah.
Dead bondage.
Walking Dead bondage.
There's probably a website for that somewhere already.
Sure, there is. Yeah.
Just speaking about directing, obviously you've done your feature as well. Do you feel any additional pressure? Like kind of the obvious question as a female writer director as well, because there's the statistic that only 7% of all directors are female, but
Yeah.
female-led films tend to make more money, but there's still that stigma around.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that kind of imposter syndrome, or kind of I needed this to be perfect because I'm going to be judged not just as a film, but the fact that I'm a woman directing a film?
I think so, and I think also the fact that I was coming in as a little bit of a known actor, and there's that kind of snobbery where people are like, they're just getting a gig because of their work before or whatever, and you know, they didn't really do that, they didn't really know what they were doing, whatever. So yeah, I did actually feel a bit like I was going to be treated that way when I was coming in. And I'm really bad with numbers, like I'm just not my strong suit at all. So things like lens numbers, which I went through an extraordinary process of choosing and tests and all of that. So I felt very invested in that, in the technical stuff. But numbers-wise, like I kept having to ask Helena, our cinematographer, like, what was the lens again? Because I thought people would ask me these things and I then would have to prove myself. As far as being on set, doing that work, I do think whether they're conscious or unconscious of it, it is harder, it seems, for guys to take leadership from a female. And sometimes that was obvious and sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes I had to say, you know, could you just do it like you would for a guy, you know? But all in all, I don't mind a bit of a challenge, you know? That was all good.
And what's it like directing someone with an Irish actor, Nora Jane Newman, who was in Wildfire recently, which is absolutely
Yeah, she's so
fantastic as
great.
well.
Yeah.
Do you, when you're like with experienced actors, it's kind of like, I don't want to tell them, I don't want to guide their performance,
Yeah.
because if I was in that position, I wouldn't want somebody saying that to me.
No, I would though. I had a really good relationship with all the cast, so they were very trusting, and they would, I knew that they would say if they weren't happy with something, so I didn't really worry about it. I think Brian Batt was the biggest challenge because he was older and because he was a guy as well. And I really had admired his work on Mad Men, and I guess sometimes I felt a bit like, is it okay that I'm, you know, pushing him in a direction that is a challenge? But he was great. He was like, just tell me if I need to butch it up. He's like, am I, and I would just say, B-I-U, butch it up, you know. But Nora Jane was amazing and just had all the faith in her. And Lauren Canny's another Irish lass. She's from Dublin. And she played Darlin. Have you guys seen Darlin? Has nobody seen Darlin?
I think it just played for the Horathon here last year, I think
Oh,
it was.
yeah?
That was it, but it
Yeah.
was, a lot of the screenings were
Yeah.
kind of either streamed or like mixed around. So
Oh,
I think it only
okay.
got literally one screening of it.
Yeah, it was on Now for a while, and it's been on Shudder, and it's on Amazon now. But Cooper as well, who plays Jerry in The Kingdom in Walking Dead, he's in it. He plays our male lead. He plays a very loving character, very warm, which suits him very well because Cooper is a lovely, warm guy. So yeah, it was Lauren Canny played Amber in that TV show Amber, you know, about the missing girl. She was her, and she was in Normal People and Dating Amber. She played the girlfriend in that. So she'd done a lot, but she was only 19 when I cast her. And it's a very hard thing to ask a 19-year-old to lead a film and, you know, go through all that she goes through in that story. She did great. Yeah.
Yeah, she goes through quite a bit.
She does.
Not to spoil it. It's
She
definitely, if you
does.
haven't seen it, if it's on Now TV, definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Let's say all of a sudden I'm the king of Hollywood and I have 100 million here budget
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
What would be your absolute dream project to do, or who would you want to ideally work with?
That's a really good question.
I'm also enjoying me being the king of Hollywood for a while there.
I'd love to do Dracula, and I'd love to play Dracula. I think that would be really fun. But I have a few stories I want to tell and do. I want to do a Boudica story about her, or Boadicea. She was a Celtic queen who kind of burnt the Romans out of Britain. And I suppose I'd be asking for money for that. Yeah, to make the feature here.
You've kind of touched on that. That's something we don't really have. Like you would think with all the Irish mythology, like we would have like a Children of Lear film or a Cú Chulainn film.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something.
It's
that,
weird,
yeah.
isn't it? Because Green Knight did really well, and that was obviously historical and shot here, but not so Irish. And it's story or vibe.
Considering every comic book, song,
Yeah.
everything we get their hands on, we have this entire Irish mythology that we're into.
Yeah, and you have this gorgeous landscape and this hugely talented people. And you see how well Vikings does with the history, you know. Yeah, King of Hollywood. Let's do it.
Yep, there we go. We're right into the Cuchulainn Children Lear film
Yeah,
trilogy now.
yeah.
Is there any more questions just before we let Pollyanna go? Over here.
Oh yeah, Let Us Pray. That's me and Liam Cunningham, who you'd know from Game of Thrones, Davos Seaworth. That's a very gory horror, and we shot it in Galway and Spiel, and a bit in Scotland. And that was really fun. I mean, it was so full on, that script, and great Irish director. And I met with him on the phone and talked about it first, because I was like, it's so dark, you know, that I thought, how's he going to do this and do it morally, I suppose, where it's not just exploitation for gore's sake, you know. But he's a really interesting guy, and he had some really great ideas. So by the time we got to filming, I was so down. And working with Liam was amazing. We're still great friends, and so proud of the whole film in general. The music, the cinematography is amazing. Yeah, and had a few Scots in there. That was fun. But it was a bit mental. I mean, the fights and the fire and low budget, and there was some scary-ass moments with that fire. Yeah.
Liam Cunningham is a bizarre individual, because he looks like kind of the grumpy uncle, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, he's got, like you say, 15 refugees from Palestine or something. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah, yeah, he's a really good guy. Yeah.
Another question over here? Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Sorry, I have another one. No, because Jadis lived in a landscape.
Yeah.
So was that an actual landscape that you
No.
directed in, or it was just made on set?
No, it was all built. It was actually built by the guy who designed for Mad Max.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so like this kind of pale wood, it was all hills of wood, and then I don't know how they attached it, but like prams and, you know, trash cans and just piles and piles of trash. They got all those fabrics in from Goodwill and just piled all that up. And then the piles of cars were real. They put it, excuse me, you know where the Savior's place
Yeah.
is? That used to be the jail, that set. And they built the set opposite. For the Junkyard, they built that opposite the Savior's set. And it's right by the lake where Rick sees his first wife, like he has a second wife. The ghost of her, you know, across that lake, so it's right in that area. So it's by water, which there are a few crocs down in Georgia, so I was a bit like, and big scary snakes and stuff. We had a family of armadillos living in the Junkyard, and cats as well. During the break, they'd all come in. But no, it was all built and very realistic, but not original, like all brought in. So impressive to come into that set. And people were kind of nudging us going, you might be staying, look at the size of the set, you know, look at the expense of it. That was a good hint.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome. Nobody liked shooting there either, because it would be really hot. There was lots of metal.
I was going to say, there's very few jobs where you go, okay, just watch the crocodiles, the armadillos,
Yeah.
and the 900-degree heat. You've been asking way more better questions than I have. Do you have any more before we go?
Anyone I'd really like to work with that I haven't got to work with? Mostly, I think, directors. Like, I'd really like to work with Pedro Almodovar, who made all those great Spanish movies. I'd really like to work with Sean Baker. Who else? Which actor would I really like to work with? God, there's loads of them. Tony Hale from Arrested Development. I just think he's so brilliant. I'd love to work with him.
He's fantastic in Veep as well.
Yeah, and Veep as well, yeah. Mostly comedy people. Like, I get really excited by that timing and that where they can hold themselves in these ridiculous situations. I'd love that. Is there anyone you'd like to work with? Andrew Lincoln? All the way. Okay. Done.
She'll give you the number after.
Yeah.
Just on that as well, would you be interested in writing a comedy as well?
Yeah, I wrote the stand-up story you were talking about as a comedy, and I think there's quite a bit of comedy in Darlin as well. And I think in everything I do. I wrote a film called Getting Away From It All, which is part of a horror anthology called Deathcember, which is like a Christmas horror thing. That had quite a lot of comedy in it as well. I think life is super absurd and is always funny. There's always something funny, like especially when it's dark. There's always like, you know. So
what would be your influences? That like what kind of horror, what kind of dark comedies would you be a fan
I've
of
watched
yourself?
a lot of John Waters growing up, like all those old like Hairspray and Serial Mom and Crybaby and Pink Flamingos and all that stuff. Absolutely loved that growing up. I just would have seen Quentin Tarantino's early stuff, and I realized after making Darlin that I'd totally shoved in some Tarantino in there with that like foot, like apparently I've got a foot fetish because there's feet everywhere and everything I do now, and the sunglasses that the woman puts on in the hospital, that's totally from Kill Bill, but I didn't realize it till later. And Australian movies like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, my little local cameo cinema in Edinburgh that we would go to after school with my girlfriends. And we just get to see all these David Lynch movies, like all that stuff. Blue Velvet just blew our minds. Anything that was kind of burst the bubble of hypocrisy of what we were told was the way the world was, we just lapped it up.
You do see that kind of now. We're seeing that you mentioned Mad Max there with Charlize Theron, the Furiosa spin-off as well.
Yeah.
Like there does seem to be that kind of appetite now. I'm reading a book at the moment about the making of Mad Max, and that just sounds like she was bullied to Christ by Tom Hardy on that set. So there is a lot more to do on that. So there is that kind of shift towards a big budget female action film as well.
I think we're ready for it, right? I mean, anyone? I think we've been ready. Yeah. There's this control thing in Hollywood of like keeping the story the way it's easier to make movies, but I don't think it shows respect for the audience. And I think one of the great things about Walking Dead and the fan base is that it proves that like we can have a dark-skinned black female lead. We can have people from all economic backgrounds and sexuality and genders, and we don't need to them and mark them on those things that we can judge them in the world that they're living in now, and how their loyalty is, how their strength is, how their the shades of grey, how they interpret all of that and how they deal with the world they're in now, rather than, what you're born into, or, economics is a huge part of it, So all those traditional characters of the princess that needs rescued, and, the white man who can destroy, legions of cars and civilians as long as he's going to get the bad guy and have that final fight, shit like that. I think we're more nuanced than that, and we're ready for those kinds of stories.
Unfortunately, we're getting the wrap-up signal there. Pollyanna, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pollyanna McIntosh.
Thank you so much. Woo-woo! Oh, and before I go, I should mention that AMC gave us some lovely goodies from the show, and I've got a first script of season 11 and one of the original comic books, and boxed up in all the protective
comic
gear.
rating.
Yeah, thank you. At the table, and I'm just asking people to give €5 to the Ukrainian Humanitarian Fund, and then you get into a sort of raffle. And so far, there's just 24 people that have put their name down. I'm just doing it today and tomorrow. So if you want to come by the table and do that, then tomorrow I'll announce the winner and give it to them. And you can't buy it anywhere. It's just an AMC thing that they did. So come on down.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.